there is something about affirming yourself positively that not only impacts your heart and your spirit, but it impacts your mental health. And this is Mental Health Awareness Month. So yeah, get into those I am affirmations and tell yourself who you are. You are valued. I was thinking this morning about some things, different things, and one of the things I thought about is, as women, we tend to tie our value to things that really don't define our value. Like, so people's opinion, what people think about us, what people say about us, our past, our mistakes, our missteps. And when we do that and we tie our value to those things, sometimes it puts us in a place where we almost see our value as diminished, and it impacts how we show up. It impacts what we accept. So sometimes, because we don't see the value in ourselves, we accept less than, right? And that can show up in your job or career, and whether or not you push yourself to progress in your career or grow in your career or go after that promotion because of how you value yourself. You don't feel like you're worthy, or you don't feel like you're good enough, or even in relationships, right? So you tend to accept things in a relationship that you wouldn't if you saw yourself in a different way. You compromise your standards because you feel like, well, maybe I'm not worthy of this kind of love, or maybe I'm not deserving of a relationship that looks like this, right? And so that's what I was thinking about this morning. And I just wanted to stop by and say that you are valued, and tell yourself today, I am valued. I just want to share a little bit of a story time. So I'm adopted, right? And I found out I was adopted when I was like 5 years old. And at the time, for me, it wasn't a bad thing. Like, I was actually excited about it because my perspective about my adoption was, my parents picked me. I was chosen. I am special. And I carried that with me. But probably in my adolescent years, in school, people would ask me things like, are you mixed? What are you mixed with? And I am biracial, right? And so it was challenging to navigate that sometimes, because then the question would be, well, which one of your parents is white? Like, what you mixed with? White and black. Okay, well, which one of your parents is white? Both my parents are black, right? So those are my parents. Those are my parents I know. Both of them are black. And so those kind of questions from other people started to impact the way I saw myself. And then it started to impact how I view my adoption. So I went from this childlike view of, I'm special, I'm chosen, my parents handpicked me or whatever, to looking at myself like, and thinking about, well, my biological parents, like, they didn't want me. Like, and then it opened the door for thoughts of like fear of like rejection, abandonment issues. It impacted how I saw myself. And so it opened the door for people pleasing behavior, because I didn't want to be rejected. I didn't want to be abandoned. So some of the decisions I made, some of the things I accepted, was because I didn't want to be rejected. I didn't want to be abandoned, because I tied my value to my adoption. I had a skewed perspective of my identity, based on some of my experiences, right? And so as I kind of navigated, like, and it's not until my adult years where I really started to kind of look at, okay, like, what's this about? Like, why am I showing up like this? Like, why am I behaving like this? And then you kind of do the work, and I realized that a lot, because I'm like, this didn't just start, with this particular relationship, or this didn't start, at this particular age. This goes far beyond. This didn't start when I met this person. Like, why do I feel like I have to people please? Why do I feel afraid for somebody to walk away from me? Why do I feel afraid to tell somebody no, or I'm not doing that, or I'm not, that's not what I want, or I don't deserve that? And it kind of took me down a path of realizing not that the adoption is the issue, because I had a good life. I have great parents. I love my mom and dad, and wouldn't trade them for the world. So it wasn't that experience, but it was the negative views that I allowed to, like the ideas and the thoughts that I allowed to infiltrate my mindset about my biological parents and why didn't they want me, you know? And there's a whole story to that. It wasn't just they didn't want me. They were young, they were in college, they weren't ready and prepared for a child, right? So there were reasons that they made the decision they made, and I'm not mad at them for that. But as an adolescent, with all the questions I was receiving from people around me, it started to make me look at things differently. And I had to get back to that childlike idea of, I am chosen, I am special. My parents did handpick me. You know, I had to go back to that. But it took me a long time to get back to that space. And it did impact lots of decisions that I made throughout my life up until adulthood. And I even still now deal with things, right, as it relates to rejection, as it relates to people pleasing. I'm still identifying things like, that's not us no more, right? I have to I have to allow my mind to be renewed every single day about who I really am and about the value that I hold. And recognize that the value that I hold is not, my value is not based on who rejected me or who accepted me. My value is not based on who loves me and who doesn't on this earth. My value is based on who God says I am, the love that God has for me. That is where my identity comes from. And I think that when we get to a place where we kind of are no longer aligned with that, we don't know that, we don't believe that, or we've never been aligned with that, then we tend to see ourselves potentially in the wrong light, and through other people's lens and through the lens of whatever experiences we had. And we have to realign our identity and who God says we are and the value that he sees in us, so that we can see it in ourselves, because we were made and created in his image. What he says about us, what he sees in us, that's what is true. And we have to see that and say that for ourselves. And so when you think about it, it's like, well, okay, well, what value do I have in God? How does God value me? And then when you think about it, it's like the Bible says we're the apple of his eye. The Bible says that God knew us before we were ever formed in our mom's womb. He knows the number of hairs on our head. Like, the people in my life that are closest to me on this earth have no idea the number of hairs on my head. But God values us so much that he knows even the smallest intricate details about us. And there's so many more scriptures that you can go and find that will show you and tell you how much God values us. One of the biggest, most important ones, I would say, is the fact that the sacrifice of Jesus and his life for ours, his life as a ransom for ours, so that we could be reconciled with God, to go directly to the throne, to go directly to him, to have a direct line of communication with him, to restore us to how our relationship with him was before sin entered the garden. So you are valued. That was the whole purpose of this video, is to come. I don't know who needs to hear it. I don't know where you are or what's going on, but you are valued. So take a look at yourself in the mirror today and say, I am valued. I am valuable. And I will say, fun fact, okay, this is the nerd in me. I am affirmations are not only spiritual, they are also scientifically proven to have a physical impact on your brain. You can actually see areas of the brain light up when you positively affirm yourself on the MRI. You can see it on the MRI. So do your research on that. But I'm telling you, there is something about affirming yourself positively that not only impacts your heart and your spirit, but it impacts your mental health. And this is Mental Health Awareness Month. So yeah, get into those I am affirmations and tell yourself who you are. Align yourself with who you are through the finished works of Jesus, who you are, who God says you are. And you can start today with your I am valuable affirmation. Be blessed.